Charles, good to have you on board and welcome to this Monday night.
Thank you. I was very impressed by the way you said New Zealand. You even use the accent.
Yeah, I like to play around with that because I think I'm allowed to because my grandfather was a Kiwi.
Ah, what a beautiful part of the world. It's geographically, it's the way it presents, especially in the South Island, it's absolutely stunning.
It certainly is.
Yeah, I'm going there tomorrow. Actually,
are you?
Yep, I'm heading off late flight, get in at 5 to midnight, and spend about 5-6 hours there and flying straight back. Just got a little bit of work to do when I'm there and head back.
So, look, now that you've brought up New Zealand, what can you tell us about the market there?
That market's been hot for quite some time. It depends where you go. And then you had the massive earthquakes in the south, and Wellington was impacted by that big time. Our guys in Wellington couldn't even go to their office for a number of weeks. The whole CBD was shut down because of concerns. So there have been quite a few issues, and their marketplace is very, very heavily driven by international buyers coming in too. They've had the same issues, if you call it issues, that we've had with people buying from overseas. A lot of people wanting to buy there. But I found today, the stats coming out today are saying that the building construction is dropping significantly in Australia. And that was always my argument when people say, well, what do you do about the overseas buyers? I said, well, if you don't have the overseas buyers, I can promise you if we didn't have them, we would not have the construction boom that we have had, which has provided so many jobs. So driving them out has always been a bit of a concern for me, and now we're starting to see softening in the building industry, and that could cause concerns in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, in fact, there's a story we'll get to a little bit later tonight about Brisbane. Some freebies are being offered there by some agents in Brisbane because rental properties are sitting vacant for a bit too long for their liking, but we'll get to that later. Let's start out with auction clearance rates.
Well, there you go. They have dropped. They have dropped across the country, but 74.6% was the clearance rate on a national basis. But still, you know, when I look at Sydney, it came in at 76.2, and Melbourne at 77.3, and Canberra, here we go again, 75.9. They are exceptional clearance rates. And something we talked about a few weeks back, we're probably going to experience our first ever real estate winter in probably 5 years. There hasn't been a cycle because it's just been so crazy. And with the softening in terms of the way the banks are putting pressure on investors and the way in which people are concerned about an oversupply, it's now sort of leading right into winter. So we're starting to actually feel a bit of a slowdown, and I'm quite happy with that. I think that's what we've needed for a long time. But even if we still move into the mid-70s in an auction clearance rate across the country, that is still very high.
Yeah.
Very high. And, you're talking doom and gloom. You're talking 45, 50, 55% clearance rates.
Okay, so when you talk about a real estate winter, you define that as being a slowdown. And are you saying that up until now, for the past 5 years, we've just barreled through winter? It hasn't actually made... The season change has made zero impact upon the market. Is that right?
Yes, because the demand was so strong and the supply lines were so short. But now we're seeing that change. We're seeing the supply lines kick up, and we've had an increase in four weeks in a row now. Although the increase is only a plus 0.32% this week over last week, every single week there has been an increase in the amount of stock coming on the market. So that coupled with the banks, with people being concerned, people stepping back, I think that's a really good thing that can happen to our marketplace.
You see a lot of mortgage brokers in your week, I guess, because you're in the business of helping people get into homes, and more these days, correct me if I'm wrong here, but an estate agent can help to sort of bring the multiple pieces together that a person needs. So may well suggest, if you're able to, a broker. So a fair bit's been made about smaller banks these days, the less traditional ones, getting a little more traction in the marketplace. I think that the big four provide most of the financing. But there's a lot of people, I read an article over the weekend on Facebook, a lot of people getting really good results and a great deal of satisfaction out of smaller banks.
Absolutely. Look, we have close to 50 brokers in Century 21 Home Loans, and they tour the country and work inside offices, and they're no different than your Aussie or your Mortgage Choice. We're all providing financing from all of the banks as well. And what the banks have worked out is actually having brokers outside of the bank is a lot cheaper for them than employing people. So even though they play around with the incentives they give brokers, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, they recognise that the brokers are important. And in line with what you're talking about with the smaller banks, I remember when Macquarie was just a small bank.
Yeah.
And they found a niche, and that niche was to go into an area, mostly into the real estate industry, is where they've developed a fantastic business. And they started financing rent rolls on cash flow, not needing bricks and mortar, and none of the other banks would touch it. And if you look at the real estate industry, when we went through that tough cycle, the agents that survived the strongest or had the best chance of survival were those that had strong rent rolls, which then underpinned Macquarie's business. It gave them the opportunity to set up a structure for fees for the deaf system, and every single transaction that goes through property management can attract a fee. And if you look at Macquarie, that's only one arm, but it's made them massive. And some of these regional banks and small lenders, like your building societies and so on, have a fantastic opportunity right now to grow their book, because they can undercut banks. They don't have the same cost base, and they can build some fantastic businesses. And I think is that you're seeing those come out of the woodwork now.
Okay.
Yeah.
13 12 83 is our number tonight. Charles Tarbey from Century 21 is here if you need some help. And we're getting towards the end of the financial year, so maybe you're reconsidering how you are a part of property. 13 12 83.
Thank you.
So, mate, let's have a look at vacancy rates. We've covered off auction clearance rates, and we'll get into that in deeper kind of discovery soon with Matt Shalhoub, who's from Under the Hammer. What do you make of vacancy rates?
Well, there's that article today that I saw regarding Brisbane.
Yes, freebies offered with Brisbane rental properties amid apartment boom.
And they were concerned because their vacancy rates have hit 4.4%.
Yeah.
When I look at the vacancy rate in Perth, which has gone backwards and started to climb up again, it in this last week has hit 10.2%.
Oh, gee.
So that's a significant damage control that landlords have to look at. Agents have to work with landlords to reduce prices to get rents more aligned, because the rent movement hasn't been that fantastic over the last couple of years. We haven't had a major growth spurt at all. In fact, we're behind from 24 plus months ago when I started recording these. So I'd say the vacancy rate, Sydney's always performing fantastically because of the undersupply, and that came in at 0.82% in vacancy rates. Melbourne came in at 1.18%. So I guess Brisbane should be nervous at 4.4, but you can imagine what the industry and the landlords are going through in Perth at 10.2.
Absolutely. With that Brisbane scenario, so in 2015, up to 60 new apartment blocks were completed. So the wave is waning this year. And one real estate agent made the made the observation that a lot of the owners of older homes, maybe Queenslanders, are now competing with brand new apartments with pools and spas and saunas. So it's tough. It's very tough, and they are offering incentives. And I saw that article where they're offering what I think to be the wrong incentives. Yeah. I think that it's quite possibly it could be seen as inducing somebody to transact, which I'm not sure if how that falls in line in Queensland. But I know when we were giving away the $400,000 apartment, and then we were offering an extra prize, a cash prize for people who referred somebody to us, it was seen as potentially inducing somebody to do business with us, so we withdrew that prize. I think a better way is to look at what the landlord can offer a tenant. For example, a mowing service. So if you're in an established home or a block of land, if the landlord said, "Yep, part of this is that we get a professional person come around every 14 days, maintain your lawns and so on," I think that's a better incentive. I think also agreeing in your lease that there might be a fixed price for a period of time would keep people there and keep them attracted. Yeah, that's good.
Raising the rents is not always the best option, and I think this is the issue that we might see in Hobart, where we talked about a lot of investors buying there, and then all of a sudden you get an oversupply, and then the competition kicks in.
All right, 13 12 83. Charles Tarbey's here to take your calls tonight, and still ahead we'll go around the grounds as well and check out what's happening in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales and the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Andrew's phoned in. He's got a comment. Hello, Andrew.
Good evening, chaps. How are you?
Good, thanks, Andrew. Did you want to make a comment on Perth?
I did.
Please.
I would have thought the occupancy rates in Perth would be a direct correlation with the downturn in the mining industry.
Yes, they have been, absolutely. And also at the same time, Andrew, when the mining boom was occurring, there was a significant amount of investment. So you had a lot of people, particularly the lobster fishermen up north, they were making quite a lot of money and bringing it down and buying properties. There was a lot of coastal properties that we saw being sold for quite exceptional prices and never been lived in. So there's been a significant amount of investment at the same time now with people leaving the state, and in addition to that, the investors being a bit nervous. It certainly meant that there's a lot of property available for rent. So absolutely, mining has caused that in many respects. And I was like that with commercial too, Andrew. I was a bit concerned with commercial real estate in Perth. It was going absolutely through the roof in price and rents. And it's the one part of the country I never bought a commercial property to put my corporate office in. And now when you look at the commercial properties in Perth, the office blocks and the front shops, they're doing all sorts of incentives to get you in there, and the prices have certainly dropped. Have you noticed that yourself?
Oh, I certainly have, but I suppose the other thing that weighs into the situation when you mentioned the fishermen, they would have had to receive financial advice from their the people, because they are fishermen. I'm not suggesting they were great money managers, but they were earning a lot of money. But if they had people suggesting they put it into bricks and mortar at that time, they probably should have put maybe half of it into that and half into something
else. Yes, and again, I don't disagree. And with the property market moving the way it was, it always looks really attractive and it always looks really easy, Andrew. And here we are sitting here with a lot of people in Perth, in the suburbs, that have got negative equity. And that's a really sad situation to see. And everybody's suffering through it at the moment.
Thanks for your call, Andrew. 13 12 83. Charles Tarbey is here answering your real estate questions tonight on Property Fast Track. Can I put you on the spot about commercial property?
Oh, why not?
Okay, so Perth's the only place you didn't want to put an HQ.
Yeah.
Where do you think, what do you rate right now? What do you think's a decent investment now in Australia when it comes to commercial property?
Okay. I do have a HQ there, but I just didn't want to buy a property to put it in at that time. I would now. I would now, though, mind you.
Hindsight's good, isn't it?
No, I mean, now I would, because the prices are good now. The prices are more realistic now.
Okay, yep.
I think commercial property in stratas, particularly in capital cities and around good quality infrastructure, are still very strong, because a lot of people are finding that the rents that they were paying in these commercial stratas is significantly higher than it would be for you to go out and buy the floor, borrow 100%. You would still be paying less than rent and have a bit of cash left over. So the only downside of it, and where my the floors are, where my business's corporate offices are located, I'm the tenant, so it makes it so much secure. But I have had a floor two floors in the one building. One I wasn't using that I wanted to lease out, and there were so many incentives being offered by so many of the agents around that particular capital city. It became incredibly difficult to try and lease it, and that's what you've got to be careful of. The incentives, and not only that, if you can't find a tenant, it's a significant amount of outgoing while you're waiting. Yeah. That's the danger part.
Big rates. You'll always pay more on rates, for example, insurances, or everything's much higher.
And
land tax,
incentives, and the risk is greater. But if you are the tenant yourself, I'd encourage you to buy your own floor for sure. Yeah.
And a lot of people having a look at it now through self-managed super funds, right?
Yes, and that was the big thing going back a few years ago, that opportunity to convert commercial property at the time, not residential, commercial property, and put it into your super fund. That was the big win for anybody that had that opportunity. So a lot of that did occur.
13 12 83 tonight is the number for Charles Tarbey. He's here to share some wisdom on real estate. We'll take a look at the weekend auctions with Matt Shalhoub pretty soon, go around the grounds. But next, Steve Carroll is going to optimise your property for sale online. He's going to give us some guidance on that. Century 21 is the world's largest real estate company. So how does that help you sell your home in your neighbourhood? It gives your local Century 21 office access to the best technology and knowledge base in the world. Each office is independently owned and operated, so your local Century 21 agent knows your city and your neighbourhood. They know how to get things done locally. Being part of a bigger picture allows Century 21 agents to offer a better level of service. They're drawing on the experience and resources of over 300 offices around Australia, and that number's growing. Century 21 is the fastest growing real estate brand in Australia. Whether you're buying, selling, or looking for a new home to rent, contact your local Century 21 office to see why they really are smarter, bolder, faster. Visit century21.com.au. When you decide to sell your house, the days of throwing a simple external picture in the Saturday paper are long gone. Nowadays, it's all about the internet and powerhouse websites like realestate.com.au. And what works on the net? Well, pictures do, video certainly does, interactivity, colour and more. You've got to optimise the way your property is presented if you want to attract the eyeballs, get the clicks. Joining us tonight is Steve Carroll. He's the head of sales with realestate.com.au. He's a go-to expert when it comes to digital property listings. And good to have you tonight, Steve. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah,
pleasure, mate.
G'day, Steve, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. Steve's doing a presentation for us with a group of our guys up in Queensland. So, did you tell them that the conference goes for the whole week, Steve, so you can stay and play some golf?
That sounds good. Yeah, that
sounds good. Look, let me ask you, how important is it for people to get with the times and fully embrace digital trends? I mean, I'm in there and I enjoy all of it, and I'm watching the way it's interrupting, if you like, our industry. But what do you think about embracing digital when it comes to selling your property?
Well, look, digital is here. Digital is the future. And, my advice to sellers and to agents is you've got to embrace technology. You've got to embrace the internet, because it's the way that the majority of people now search for property. And in fact, there's something I'll be talking about at your conference, Charles, something I call Google stalking. We love to check people out online, and what our research is telling us at realestate.com.au is many sellers are checking out agents online before they make a decision whether or not they're the right agent to sell their property. And obviously, buyers of property are also doing so much research on the net, and first impressions count, Charles.
Well, I'm just checking you out too. Lamrock Cafe, Bondi Beach. Is that where you hang out, is it?
No, that's not me.
Somebody's posted the photo there.
That's another latte drinker.
Yeah,
so there's no excuse for blurry pictures these days, is there, Steve? I mean, I saw one recently, and it was on one of the sites. I went, "Are you for real? Blurry pictures in this day and age?" It just turned me right off. I went, "No, I wouldn't go anywhere near that agent. They don't know what they're doing."
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, and to be honest with you, the latest smartphones, the photography is so good now that even if you're not employing professional photographers, there is absolutely no excuse, because the latest smartphones will take a good picture. Look, one of the things that we all do is we all skim through whether or not it's Facebook or LinkedIn or realestate.com.au. We skim through at a really fast speed, and if you want buyers and sellers to stop, to look at you, to look at your property, to look at your brand, having quality hero photography is essential.
It was in the good old days back in the 70s, Steve, drive-by shooting was actually just driving by and getting your Polaroid and shooting a shot as you went by. And that's what it was really like. And a lot of real estate agents, you could tell they took the photograph because their own shadow was in the photo at the same time. So there's been some very, very creative photography out there. I remember seeing one where it looked like the property had a big swimming pool because they took it from a certain angle. When you panned out, it was just a 2 metre by 3 metre plastic swimming pool that was sitting there.
The duck pond.
Yeah.
Do you think there's more a trend now for videos and virtual tours? I'm not convinced. I mean, I still like a still shot. What do you think?
Well, look, videos, I saw a stat, I think, from Google, which said by 2020, something like 90% of all content on the internet will be video. So 90% of all content on the internet by 2020 will be video. So again, if you're selling your property, if you're an agent and you're representing a seller, you need to get on the page with video. And again, look, my recommendation would be employ a professional. But if the budget is tight, then again, smartphones will do an adequate job.
Yeah, there is that there, Nick. You can pan around with the smartphone. And of course, some properties don't lend themselves to a $500 or $1,000 video in some cases. So
that's what you've got to pay? You've
got to be careful, yeah, because some guys have got to come out and do a professional job or patch it together, edit it for you. Yeah. So it can cost a lot of money. But I also see the virtual imaging coming to kick, because I was down at your office in Melbourne, and they put that headset on me, and I couldn't. All I could see was obviously the virtual buildings that were in front of me, and they made me walk across 2 buildings on a plank.
Yep.
Now, all I was doing was walking on the floor, but it just freaked me out. It was so realistic.
They weren't trying to get rid of you, were they, Charles?
They've
found
friends
plenty. Are they?
They know plenty of ways to do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, virtual reality is quite a new thing, but I know that in the travel industry, virtual reality is quite a popular thing, because if you're thinking of, should I go to Paris? Should I go to Berlin? From your own home in Sydney, you can actually do a tour around both cities using virtual reality technology. So if you put that into the world of real estate, the ability to check out properties before you actually make a decision to go and attend the OFI, look, I think at the moment it's quite light on, but if you fast forward 24 months from now, you can see consumers wanting to embrace that piece of technology.
Steve, when it comes to punchy copy, putting some fancy words together to be descriptive of the property, are you a fan of less being more, or do you think we need a decent amount of words? When is it too much?
Yeah, look, I mean, the days of, I mean, you'll remember, Charles, when we used to write classified ads for newspapers.
Yes.
And we would abbreviate words just to get into 4 lines. The days of having to do that are over, because obviously on the net you can put as much in or as little in as you want. My recommendation is less is more. Use great descriptive words. Make sure there's no spelling errors, because that leaves a bad impression. And make sure you're truthful. So there's no point misleading a potential buyer, because once you've got the buyer in the house, if he feels that the copy is an unfair representation of the listing, it's a bad reflection on the agent. It's a bad reflection on the seller, and it's not a really great reflection on realestate.com.au either. So be truthful. Less is more.
Yeah, it presents so much better, and you're absolutely correct. The old AIDA formula, if you remember it: attention in the headings, interest in the first 2 lines, desire in the body of the ad, and action in the closing lines. They were the 4 key parts of preparing an advertisement when you had to, and it's still a bit of a focus when you look at boards, for sale boards. They've still got that action heading and attention in the first couple of lines and so on. But it is a critical part of it, and you're absolutely correct. People just waffle on with so many words, and after a while you lose people. So you really need to make the ads nice and tight all the way through.
Picture tells 1,000 words.
Absolutely. And look, that again, going back to what I talked about, that skimming with your thumb, moving through realestate.com.au or Facebook or LinkedIn at a rapid speed. A hero photograph is important to stop the potential buyer or consumer in their tracks. They look at you, and also that hard-hitting headline that makes you want to read more. Worth putting a bit of effort in getting that right.
One quick question for you. Do you envisage a future where digital representation of property will be so good that physical inspection is unnecessary?
I personally think that will never happen. Right. I can't ever see a day when someone will want to buy a property without actually going in, smelling it, touching it, just being there. I don't think digital technology will ever replace that experience. What I do think, Charles, is the days of having to go to 10 open for inspections on a Saturday will probably be reduced to probably 4 or 5, because the buyer will be able to make some decisions on yes, no, yes, through what they can find on the internet.
Good on you, Steve. You're doing a great job at realestate.com.au. He's the head of sales. Thanks for your time, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Carroll.
Not a problem. Bye-bye.
Look, I think occasionally someone might buy a place without seeing it, occasionally, but I agree with Steve. I'd feel pretty nervous about forking out several hundreds of thousands of dollars without seeing a place. I hope you're both right, because I think this whole disconnect of community, this whole movement of doing things in your bedroom or in your lounge room is disappointing. It's just
in my view, human interaction is necessary for us to keep moving forward as a society, and I hope it never gets to that point where we don't do anything, leave home, stay there all the time.
We've got to go to the well and share some water. Thanks very much, mate. 13 12 83, and Charles Tarbey here tonight taking your calls, all things real estate.
Talking Lifestyle's $10,000 name claim.
So all you've got to do is enter your name at talkinglifestyle.com.au on the competition page. And we're looking for Pam Brett from McLeod tonight. Hello, Pam. Pam, if you can hear me. Pam, look at me. Call me now on 1300 385 859. Good reason to call, Pam, because you'll go in the draw for $10,000 in cash. You've got 10 minutes to do it, and we call these names every hour, every day between 6 and 9. Charles Tarbey's here tonight. Nick Bennett's my name, and he's taking your calls on all things real estate, 13 12 83, as we go around the grounds and check out Century 21's extensive national network. This time we're going to the hills. And Neil Brown from Century 21 Wentworth Falls in the Blue Mountains is on board. G'day, Neil.
Hey, Nick. How you going?
Hello, Neil. Good to see you. Well, good to hear your voice, mate. I always say see you. I don't know why I do that. Your good wife, she's away at conferencing, and you're doing all the work.
I am doing all the work, Charles.
Oh, that's great.
Mate.
Now, Wentworth Falls is a beautiful part of the Blue Mountains. Neil, you've lived there for a lot of years. Just give us a quick area profile.
Okay, well, Wentworth Falls is located in the upper part of the Blue Mountains, about 100 kilometres west of Sydney. It's quite unique up here because out of all of the mountain suburbs, it would have to be one of the flattest suburbs around. And we also sit at the bottom of the snow line. So
yeah, I was going to say that.
Winter, yeah. But, we're still very much a village atmosphere in Wentworth Falls. We got great cafes. There's plenty of things for the locals to do. We've got a great golf course, as you know. Incredible bushwalks. The grammar school is in the Blue Mountains in Wentworth Falls. We've got a TAFE college. We've got great primary schools. It's just a great place, for us especially, because we've brought our whole family in this environment, and it's fantastic for us.
And that the fact that the area itself is not that far from Sydney. Katoomba used to be a weekend stay, and a lot of the B&Bs did very well, and they suffered when the highway was turned into 2 lanes, and that's been more so pronounced in recent times because I've noticed more traffic coming up the mountains from where I live down the bottom. So the Wentworth Falls now is a day trip, so people can get up there and enjoy the restaurants, the coffee scene, and still be back in Sydney in an hour and 15 minutes.
That's correct. It's correct. I mean, we go into Sydney quite often because it is so close now, and it's got everything that you want to offer out down in Sydney. But it's only a stone throw away now.
Neil, what about stock and prices, homes or units? What's the most popular purchase there?
Look, most people come up here, are buying homes, and we've seen people come up here, and the sort of 50-50 between Sydney-siders and local people, looking for that lifestyle change, especially the Sydney-siders, because, they can come up here and they can get to spend more time with their family because generally their kids have moved out of home and have moved further west because they can't afford to get into Sydney market. So out west, it's still very, very affordable for them. All
right, so maybe the kids are living perhaps around Parramatta or around Penrith, which is a fairly easy drive from Wentworth Falls.
Exactly.
What kind of growth are you seeing?
Well, we've seen great growth. I mean, since 1999, growth in Wentworth Falls, there's only been 4 years of negative growth, and that's nearly 20 years. So 16 years has been, good growth. At the moment now, well, since 2013, average prices have gone from $391,000 to $680,000.
Yeah. And that's the amazing thing. A lot of people don't realise that. People say to me, because they know I live in the Blue Mountains, "Oh, do you live on acreage?" And I don't think it's really. That's exactly my reaction too, Neil, because the Blue Mountains is built on ridges. So go up the main road, and you've got these ridges going off. So all I could say to you is you're a very lucky man living up in the Blue Mountains. And I can also remember the day when councils were pinning rates on trees, and if you went and grabbed those rates and go and paid all the back rates, you owned a block of land. That's right. That's what it was like. So there you go.
Wow, good story. Neil Brown, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Neil.
Century 21 in Wentworth Falls, 13 12 83. Charles Tarbey here tonight taking your calls as we talk real estate, and we're looking for Pam Brett from McLeod. She's our $10,000 name claim participant for this hour, Pam. Give us a buzz. We'd love to get you on board tonight, and you could be in the running for $10,000 cash. You've got 2 minutes to call us back, 1300 385 859. Let's go up to Buderim now on the stunning Sunshine Coast. That's sublime to the ridiculous, from Wentworth Falls, almost in the middle of winter. We're almost in winter.
Start of winter, yeah.
To the sunny coast. G'day, Grant Smith. How you doing?
Good evening, Charles. How are you?
Good evening. Nick, Bennett, we're here to talk to you about your special area. I've been talking about Sunshine Coast being the place to invest for quite some time, and going back about 2 years ago, I started talking about it. So it's moving there, right? It's been very strong?
It has been. I would suggest that you've perhaps told a lot of people about that in the last 2 years, because we've definitely seen a particular growth over the last 12 months in our residential real estate.
I didn't take my own advice, Grant. That's the only problem.
Never mind.
No,
never too late, mate.
Just a quick background on Grant. He's a leading real estate practitioner. Started in his early 20s in his own business. Won a major award, realestate.com.au award for marketing property. He won that award across every real estate agent in Australia that was nominated.
Congratulations, Grant.
One of the first agents to start promoting properties with style, and Current Affair picked up the story, and generally Current Affair will look at real estate practitioners in a negative light, and mostly for the right reason they do that, but this particular time they saw this dynamic young guy, Grant, doing something quite spectacular. So tell us about your area.
Absolutely, Charles and Nick. Look, we're just located about 60 minutes north of the Brisbane airport, positioned beautifully on the coastline here. Buderim's basically the hinterland region alongside Mooloolaba and Maroochydore of the coast front. So we do see quite a diversity of property, which is one of the things I absolutely love about the region. Is we've got everything from residential homes through to units, apartments, townhouses, acreage properties, view homes. Plus, we've also got the education mecca of the Sunshine Coast located in Buderim. The majority of elite private schools are all located within the Buderim address, as well as the University of the Sunshine Coast.
Gee.
So over the past years.
And I thought you only grew ginger.
That's
how misguided I am.
Well, funnily enough, you say it, I'm standing on the side of the old ginger factory at the moment, looking out over the coastline towards Caloundra in a pair of shorts and T-shirt, contrary to what Neil was saying on the swings.
Yeah, stop bragging, stop bragging. And that's the other thing. You've got the coastline, you've got an airport.
And everything is at our fingertips here. And as a region, I think over the last 5 years, having grown up and been raised on the Sunshine Coast, to see the changes that have occurred even over the past 5, 10 and 20 years, we've definitely been a very forward-moving region.
So, Grant, I'd love to say what's the median, but you've given us a wonderful snapshot of just how broad it is there with acreages, units and houses. So let's start with maybe the average, the median for a home, for a house.
Absolutely. We've probably seen a 5 to 10% growth on those properties in the last 6 to 12 months. For a 4-bedroom brick and tile home on a suburban 700 square metre allotment, those particular properties now are ranging anywhere from sort of $500,000 to $700,000, depending on what part of Buderim and the coast you're in.
Yep. And what about an apartment?
Apartments for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, entry-level sort of investor, first-home buyer type apartment are starting in the early threes. Right through to the terrace apartments down the hill looking over the coastline, which is for your retirees.
I got to say that just only from my memory or recollection when I was talking about the Sunshine Coast, you were selling apartments not 24 months ago in the mid-twos.
Absolutely.
Wow. And finally, mate, acreages. If you want to get out of town and have a tree change, what could you expect to pay for, say, a few acres?
Okay, so we just had a property sell to a Sydney buyer who was an online business, who sold his property on a main road that was a 10-square, 3-bed, 1-bath for $1.4 million, and he's just converted that into a 600-square-metre brand-new home with 7-vehicle showroom, pool, on an acre, just alongside Buderim.
Okay, that's an interesting life experience for him, isn't it? That's great.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right, mate. Well, look, thank you very much. You're doing a good job there, Grant, and we look forward to keeping in touch with what's happening in the Buderim area on the stunning Sunshine Coast.
Thank you so much, Grant.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
You too, mate. Still ahead tonight, Matt Shalhoub, Charles. He's going to take us to the backyards, as I like to say, the grassroots look at life under the hammer in just a minute here as we get into fast-tracking property on 13 12 83. And Charles Tarbey taking your calls. Nick Bennett with you and Charles Tarbey taking your calls on 13 12 83. Auction markets across Australia certainly serve up plenty to talk about every week, and Monday's a good time to have a look at it because it's all post-auction. Let's take a look at what went down with Matt Shalhoub, an auctioneer, and he runs his own company called Under the Hammer. Hello, Matt.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you. We're going well. Let's start out with Sydney. May's been Sydney's slowest month since January. Is that a worry?
Look, just when you're slow, you look at the clearance rates for this week, we're still looking in that mid-70s. If you look at the same week last year, we're actually running in the mid-60s. So I don't think there's too many alarm bells at the moment when you look at the clearance rates still being high. And more importantly, I read an interesting stat today. The median house price in Sydney in comparison to the same period last year is still about $100,000 more.
Yeah, well, look, it's really interesting about that, Matt. The report that's done by Macquarie Bank on a regular basis came out recently and demonstrated that the price of a property in Sydney is now the median price for a property in Sydney is now 2.2 times that of Brisbane.
Wow.
So work that out. Yeah, things have changed. Things have definitely changed. There seems to be a lot of strength. There seems to be a lot of strength in Melbourne's inner north suburbs like Northcote regarding some stellar results. What are you hearing there?
Well, Melbourne had they had a substantially large number than Sydney of auctions on the weekend. They had just over 1,100 auctions that took place, and they're still running some mid-70s, 76, 77% clearance rate. So I think there's some really good things coming out of the Melbourne market at the moment. The only thing that I've noticed by looking at some of the data is their median price over the last 12 months hasn't really altered too much. So that really shows a bit of stability in terms of their marketplace, which is probably why we're seeing some good clearance rates, considering their high numbers there as well.
You've had a look at clearance rates in the winter compared to those in the spring. Do those seasons have any notable impact? Because Charles spoke earlier about maybe this one being the first real estate winter we've had in 5 years. So I'd be keen to hear your thoughts about this stuff you've looked at.
Yeah, it's really interesting because traditionally in the past, people always believed that winter wasn't a great time to sell. And when you look at the statistics, I look at last year, for example, spring saw an average of about 77% clearance, while winter sat in about 74%. The year before that, winter actually had a higher clearance rate than spring, at 78% clearance versus 64% as an average. So I think given the shortage of stock we traditionally see around the mid-year, it probably shows us a great time to be selling because the clearance rates seem to be holding their own through the colder months.
Yeah, look, I think it's changing now. When I look at it, and I'm starting to feel a difference out there. And I think, Nick, you've probably seen it, and I think you've also seen it too, Matt. You've said that there's been a bit of slowdown in a number of people. You're still getting the results, but it is changing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look, the results are there, but there's definitely a very clear distinction in the number of people who are reduced in terms of their attendance of auctions to bid.
I'm finding that exciting. Sorry, Matt.
No, you're right. I was actually going to say the other thing I found interesting was just the lesser amount of spectators as well. I noticed last week. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, I thought that was an interesting sign as well.
Too cold to get out of the house. Look, am I just kidding myself, thinking you can still drive a reasonable bargain?
Look, I don't know about the word bargain, but I actually noticed there's a few good opportunities. I like the word opportunities because. I think that in comparison to what we've seen sell in the last couple of months, that extra 5% buffer of prices that we've seen from the urgency and the number of buyers we've seen up until Easter, with that now gone, I think there's some good opportunities out there for buyers to get out there and make sure they've got their financing check and just be ready to pounce when the opportunity arises.
I like your term, mate, opportunity. It's hard to think that, $500,000 is a bargain, so good on you.
I think the word bargain in real estate is, in our markets and the major city markets, is probably a word long gone, but I like the word opportunity.
What about next weekend? It's going to be a biggie, we think, because the following weekend is a June long weekend.
Yeah, this is going to be a very big weekend. We're just sitting down looking at our list coming up for the upcoming week, and we're running something like 130 auctions this weekend in Sydney alone. And given the long weekend, the following week, it's everyone seems to be beating that period. So it'll be interesting to see how we go. Speaking to the agents, one thing that I do find interesting is the number of properties that are actually being sold prior to auction at the moment.
Yeah, that's always a sign, isn't it? That's in a strange way, that's a nervous sign. That's a market nervous sign.
It is, yeah. It definitely can be anyway, but that also comes down from people just wanting to secure something, but also from owners seizing the opportunities there to sort of got their buyer, they're happy with the price, and don't take the gamble.
Well, Matt Shalhoub, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. He's from Under the Hammer. We look forward to you next Monday. Charles Tarbey, appreciate your time as well.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Good to have you here. Enjoy your golf. No doubt you'll get some golf in over the course of the next couple of days.
I hope so.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.